Good morning, everybody. It's Mr. Mulvihill here with my boy DJ Khaled. He's got a quote for us this week. It's going to work out. Stay positive. He ain't kidding. All right, so we're gonna spend today on something called the square root. It looks like this right here. Before we get to the square root, we're gonna evaluate A, B, and C here without a calculator. So pause the video. Try to evaluate A, B, and C without a calculator. Alright, so 4 squared, as we remember, is just 4 times 4, and that is 16. The squared tells us how many times we multiply the 4 by itself. 7 squared means we multiply 7 by itself 2 times. 7 to the second power, so multiply 7 by itself 2 times. Oops, not multiply it by 2, that's the mistake you make, but multiply it by itself. 1 time, 2 times. You get 49. And then 9 squared equals 9 times 9, and 9 times 9 we know to be 81. Alright, so that's exponents. The square root symbol, which is this, is the opposite operation of squaring a number. So it's like the opposite. So instead of like, hey, 5 times 10 equals 50, you might say 5 times what equals 30. And the opposite of multiplication, we know, is division. So if we were to divide both sides by 5, we would see x equals 6. Kind of that stuff we've done before. So the whole thing with the square root, it's the opposite of the square. So if we look at example 1, when we see, we read this like the square root of 36, and we just ask ourselves, what times itself equals 36? So you can think about it. Hey, what times itself would equal 36? And if you thought it was 6, you'd be correct. We can see. We'll do a quick little check right here. Check. Let's see. We can check by just going like this. 6 squared. Well, what's 6 squared? 6 squared is 6 times 6, and 6 times 6 is 36. So there we go. Yeah, 6 equals the square root of 36. All right. So you try number 2. Ask yourself, what times itself will equal 64? You should get 8. Go ahead and check. Let's make sure they're right here. So to check to see if 8 is the square root of 64, let's see what 8 squared is, because it's the opposite. 8 squared, well, we know 8 squared to be 8 times 8, and 8 times 8 is 64. Yeah, so we got it. All right, here. Sometimes we don't get numbers that are going to work out so good with square roots. It's a big idea. Most of the time we don't get lucky. So let's take a look at example 3 and estimate the square root of 24. What 2 integers must it be between? Well, we got to think again. What times itself equals 24? I might just think, well, I know that 4 times 4 equals 16. So it's not going to be 4. If I go one more up, 5 times 5 equals 25. So I went over it. So it's got to be between 4 and 5. Because 4 squared is 16 and 5 squared is 25, but the 24 is between 16 and 25. So we're not really sure. It's got to be between 4 and 5. So what is the answer? Well, that's what example 4 is all about. Evaluate the square root of 24 and round to the nearest hundredth. So how we can do that is we can use our calculator. I will show you the calculator for the one we use at school first. So if we go right here, and hi, and where are we? There we are. Square root of 24, what we're going to do is we're going to obviously turn our calculator on, and then we are going to do second second that squared button. See the square root right there? And then the number we're going to put under it is 24. And press enter. And we get 4.89899799486. Big random number. So 4.898. We'll write that down. And it says round to the nearest hundredth. So let's go ahead and do that. Rounding is important, so maybe we're forgetting how to do that, but I think we should be pretty good. The hundredth place is this one. It goes tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and so on. So that's this place, the second one. Oops. And what I like to do is kind of draw eyes, because I know I have to look at the number right next to it when I round it. And the saying goes, 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 and below, let it go. So that 8 is above 5, so we're going to give the number we underlined right here a shove. What's that going to make it? It's going to make it a 0. So there's going to be a 0 right there. And if that's a 0, then this 8 would have to get bumped up too. That's the hard example, 4.90. All right. In case you don't have that calculator, you can go to Desmos. You type in Desmos calculator and you get scientific calculator. And you can type in this button right there, the square root button. Square root of 24, 4.89, and there you go. All right. So moving on here, taking a look at some different questions. Use a calculator to evaluate the following. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So why don't you go ahead, pause the video and try that out, and then I'll go over the answers. All right. Well, this one here, 36 square root of 36 minus square root of 4. I know that 6 minus square root of 4 is 2. That's just going to be 4. 3 times the square root of 16. We aren't going to multiply that 3 in there. I would just use your calculator exactly how you see it. So 316, 3 square root 16 equals 12. Oh, well, that's simple enough. In case you're wondering, it's really just 3 times 4, because square root of 16 is 4. That equals 12. Square root of 2.25 is just 1.5. Square root of 10, if you do that in your calculator and round to the nearest tenth, you'll get 3.162, and then when you round, you're rounding this value, that's the tenth. The 6 is what we look at, and it's above, so it's going to be 3.2. Square root of 50 is going to be 7.1 when you round to the nearest tenth, and then square root of 100 is 10, because 10 times 10 equals 100. All right. Let's look right here. Kathy thinks the square root of 30 equals 5.4. Check to see if she is correct. All right, so remember, the whole idea of a square root is it is what number times itself equals 30. So Kathy thinks that, oh, I know what it is. It's 5.4. Well, let's check. What is 5.4 squared? It's 5.4 times 5.4. 5.4 times itself. Does that equal 30? Let's see. 5.4 times 5.4. It equals 29.16. That's not exactly 30. She rounded, and that's fine, but this value is what you call irrational. There's no number that we could write out that would suffice. It goes on forever. If you actually calculate the square root of 30, it equals, on your calculator, 5.4772255575. I can show you too. And it's going to go on forever. If you see over here, on our calculator, the calculator runs out of space, runs out of real estate, as they say. But it would keep going. The number is called irrational. All right, so she was not right. It's not the square root of 30. It's close, but it's not quite it. All right, last bit here, guys. So solve the equations below to find what value of x makes the equation true. This is kind of recap stuff. X minus 7 equals 91. To solve this out, we're going to add 7 to both sides. The opposite of subtracting 7 is adding, so we'll get x equals 98. 12x equals 30. The opposite of multiplication is division, so we can divide by both sides. Get x equals 2.5. Now x squared equals 49. We haven't seen this before. What do you think we might do? Let's call, I can't call on anyone. Let's just go right here. Take the square root of both sides. That's how we're going to get rid of it. And we're going to get x equals, well, what's the square root of 49? 7. X equals 7. Now here's the deal. There is one little quick change here at the very end of this lesson. When you guys solve an equation, you can get a plus or minus 7 as our answer. Why? Well, if you look, we see 7 squared is 7 times 7, and that equals 49, so we know that would solve it out. But if you also did negative 7 squared, what's negative 7 times negative 7? Positive 49, right? If you multiply negative 7 by itself, you also get 49. So we have to say plus or minus 7. We only have to say plus or minus when we solve an equation. All right. So same deal here. To find the x squared equals 121, we're going to do the opposite of a square, which is the square root. So we'll get x equals, the square root will cancel that out. And you just type in the square root of 121, which is 11. And we know when we solve an equation, it's going to be plus or minus. It's only going to be plus or minus for equations. The stuff up here, where the square root of 36 equals 6, since we're not really solving an equation, we don't have to do plus or minus. Don't have to do that. All right, that's all I got, you guys. Hope that makes sense. Stay positive, and I'll see you guys tomorrow or on Tuesday for our Google Meet. All right, take care, you guys. Peace.